introverted noise.
Hurry up, Daddy.
All right. Welcome back to the One a Day Draft Series. I am your host, Jason Brown. You can find me on Twitter at BrownJason. And if we're talking skill positions, we're talking men running around on the outside, the athletes, the people with, exceptional hand-eye coordination, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. If those are the groups we're talking about, then we're talking to Myles Gorham. Myles, my man, how you doing? How you been?
I'm good. Just I'm excited to talk about this crop of draft safeties this year.
I'm not sure I believe you right now, Myles.
No, I'm serious. I am. I think when I originally started diving into the class, I was a little underwhelmed, but the more I kept watching, and the more I dove into it, the more impressed I was. At first, I was kind of worried that there wasn't going to be too many guys that would really be impact players, but there's quite a bit of players in this class that are some good prospects.
All right. Well, with that said, with that stage set, we're going to jump right into it. And obviously, the first thing we need to do here is that there's a lot to look at. Safety is a position that can be difficult to really project because there's so many different ways the safety can be deployed in college. So really figuring out how the skill set is going to transition from the college game to the pro game is one that can be a very difficult thing to do. Myles, when you are looking at safeties, how are you making that assessment? And I guess another question is, how do you differentiate or value maybe the box safety versus the center fielder type of safety?
Yeah, I really think for one, we could start. It's the willingness to kind of to work in space, work in the box, and the ability to shed blocks, make tackles going downhill against running backs, and being able to kind of mix it up with a tight end or even an offensive lineman if you have to. I mean, you don't expect a safety to go head to head with an offensive lineman, but the ability to kind of work around them and find ways to making tackles and making plays around the line of scrimmage, I think is a big one. And then compare that to guys up top. Those guys are the ones that they don't have to be as versatile against the run, but I mean, you'd ideally like your safeties to be versatile and be able to do to be able to work in the box and up top. But if you're looking strictly at an up the top type of safety, you want those guys to be able to read and react extremely well, to be able to run sideline to sideline, and to be kind of ball hawks, guys that find the ball, have a nose for the ball, that create turnovers in the passing game, and they're the kind of guys that don't get beat downfield.
All right. So Myles, day one, because you said when you started off, you didn't really love this class all that much. Does that, I guess, help me understand, is it a top-heavy class? Is it a class with good depth? As we get into things, day one, were there a lot of names that you like, or is this one that we're going to have to wait till we get later in the draft before you really get excited about what's going on?
Yeah, and I think I've said this a few times now. This safety class and this, I feel like this draft this year is so middle heavy, is like guys rounds 2 through 4 to 5. There's just so much talent in that range, and I feel like safety isn't any different. I'd kind of put it in a similar tone as wide receiver. You have a few guys that people are really intrigued by that have a lot of high upside, but I don't think you have really a true consensus first round player. I won't be surprised if a guy or two goes in the first round, but I don't know if I'd personally take one. I think if there would be one guy, I think for me it'd be Darnell Savage from Maryland. He's my favorite player in terms of safety in this class. He's a little bit undersized, a little under 5'11", but he's twitchy. He makes plays all over the field. He's kind of like what I talked about earlier. He has that ability to play in the box, even for being a little bit smaller, and he's got the ability and the speed to play up top, as well as kind of match up in the slot if you need him to, and work against work against tight ends and slot receivers. So he's got the ability to do a little bit of everything, and I love his motor. He's just the kind of guy that's got a nose for for the ball and finding the ball carrier and making sure that they don't make plays. And
All right. So is that a strong endorsement for day one, or is that a top of day two? Where are we going with this one?
I'd probably put him back round one, back day one, like early round two. So kind of in that like pick 25 to like let's say 35 range.
Okay, so that's day one. That's day
Yeah,
one, and that's it for day one.
I would consider him a day one player, and I would not be surprised at all if he went there. But I could also see just because of the position, him maybe falling just a little bit down to day two. But yeah, I would put him in day one. I have no issue with it at all.
Okay. Well, like you've been saying, this is really day two is when things get interesting in this draft. So
Yep.
as we get into day two, who do you like?
Yeah, and I'm not putting these into any specific order, just kind of going through guys of names that I like on day two. Amani Hooker from Iowa. So he's a Minnesota native. So I'm sure Vikings fans and people around the Twin Cities area are pretty familiar. His days at I think he went to Park Center High School here in the Twin Cities, but he's a good player, and I think he's kind of transformed himself at Iowa to become a playmaker and to kind of put himself in a position to get drafted on day two. I think it took him a little bit to kind of get his feet wet, and I think to kind of understand the game. But he became a 2-year starter, kind of forced his way into the field as a sophomore because I think they had some guys in place that I think someone got hurt, and he was able to come in, and it really got him an opportunity to really stay on the field. I think they had a hard time taking him out the field once the player that he went in for who was hurt. I think they had a really hard time taking him off the field. He's a versatile guy. Like I said, he can play both high and in the box. 6 interceptions in 2 years, and he's twitchy. He's not afraid to get in there and mix it up with guys either. So I really like Amani Hooker from Iowa. I'd say another guy, Taylor Rapp. He's a guy that he's definitely a box safety for me. Didn't really run or jump very well, but he's the kind of guy that can work well in the box and kind of be your strong safety that rolls down and can cover safeties. I keep saying that. I'm used to talking about offense. He's the kind of guy that can cover tight ends, I think, extremely well. He's really his agility. He's really good. He tested extremely well with it and with the agility, and it shows on tape. He's the kind of guy that gets in there and mixes it against the run. He quite a bit of tackles for loss. He's a playmaker, and he goes downfield pretty hard, and he's the kind of guy that you don't want to match up one-on-one with. The next one for me would Chauncey Gardner-Johnson from Florida. He's more of that, he can kind of play nickel or play high. Even for his size, does a really good job of challenging against bigger tight ends. I do think he has a little bit of work to do in man coverage, but I think the skill set is there. But I just think there's some of that fine nuancing and tweaking that he can work on that. I think some coaching could really help him out a lot. Nasir Adderley from Delaware. He's the kind of guy that I kind of love the kind of prospect he is because he's played corner as well as safety. So you know that there's some of that ability to flip your hips and kind of work in tight coverage if you need to. And so I think his ability to work against tight ends should really translate well for him. I think he's a really good player. So didn't test as well as I kind of thought he would have based off his film, but yeah, I think he's a good. I think based off the film, he's a good athlete, and he kind of just was all over the field for Delaware. I do think he needs a little bit of work in recognition when he's filling lanes against the run, but I think that's something that's not something that's not coachable. Another guy for me, Jonathan Abrams from Mississippi State. He's that like tone setter. I don't think he's not Jamal Adams in terms of the kind of prospect he is, but I think there's that hard hitting, hard nosed type of player. I think there's that kind of competitiveness. I think that's similar. I just don't think he's quite as athletic as a guy like Jamal Adams or an overall athlete as Jamal Adams was coming out of college. But I think he's that tone setter. He's that thumper who goes in and plays like a linebacker, but has the ability to run like he's like a cornerback. So I really like him a lot. Definitely more of a box safety, and I really see him kind of being that that guy that could be that number one strong safety for a team. And then Deionte Thompson from Alabama. He's really taken a big hit this offseason. I think going into the pre-draft process, I think people had Deionte Thompson as arguably the best safety in the class. And the more you kind of dive into things, and the more he didn't really get to test at the combine because of his I think he had a wrist injury he might have had, but he's really skinny, really small guy. He's definitely more of that free safety playing up top, not really a box safety at all, not really the kind of guy that you'd ask to come in and fill against the run. So that I think that'll hurt him because he is so undersized, and his willingness sometimes to go fill in the run isn't quite there. But he's a really good center fielder. He's that kind of guy that you want roaming up top and kind of making plays sideline to sideline in that capacity more than you'd want him to play in the box. And then my last guy would be Juan Thornhill from Virginia. I just think he's a good player. I think there's a little bit of work that he needs to do, but nothing that I think is uncoachable. And that's really all I have for day two, I'd say right now.
All right. Well, yeah, you were a man of your word there. That day two, rounds 2 and 3 look like the place that you really want to go if you're looking for a safety in this class. Well, yeah, you did a lot of work there on day 2. Do you leave anyone for day 3? Anybody left that you like?
A few guys. Marquise Blair from Utah, Sheldrick Redwine from Miami, Lukas Denis from Boston College, and Khari Willis from Michigan State. I really like Khari Willis from Michigan State. I think he didn't get enough credit for kind of what he's able to do at Michigan State. Tested pretty decent, but I think with some of these guys, I just think the biggest issue is some of their size. I mean, he's not even 5'11". Khari Willis isn't 5'11". He's just a shade under that. But he's 213, so I think that's extremely helpful. But you see some of these guys, like his arm length and wingspan isn't very long at all. Ran in the 4.5s, which isn't bad for a guy that you that's playing safety and not really asking him to do too much of a running downfield, one-on-one downfield. But I think he's a good player. I think he's the kind of guy that could come in and contribute on special teams and help a team out a lot early on, and then maybe eventually, in year 2 or 3, work his way onto the field.
Well, there we go. We have it.
Like I said, pretty good overall safety class. I think it's deep, but I think if you're a team that needs safety help, day 2 is definitely the time to get it done, in my opinion.
Yeah, so basically in this class, the way you're looking at it, there's some decent depth, but if you don't get that pick done by the end of Friday night, you're probably better off waiting until next year.
I would say so. I mean, unless you want a guy like Khari Willis, I think he could be someone that could come in and help Marquise Blair too. But yeah, overall, I think I'd say you'd probably want to spend a day 2 pick to make sure you kind of get your guy.
Well, boom, there it is. There we go. Another position done. We have one more to go before we have some other things coming for you here this week of the draft. And Myles, I think you finally finished it. You've run your marathon. You've finished the race. You've knocked out all the positions you're responsible for. So yeah, that's it. That's all. Won't be talking to you on here for a little bit, but probably be talking to you again tomorrow.
Yeah, can't wait for the draft to get here, man.
All right, man. Yeah, no doubt. Well, thank you for coming on. Listeners, thanks for sticking with us. And yeah, we'll be in touch with you soon with another one of these dropping tomorrow. Have a good one.